My experience in Rome has been phenomenal. I chose to actually rent an apartment close to the Spanish Steps. I have really loved my classmates, and I have made lasting friendships. And the people in the class were from 23 years of age to 80 years of age. So it was a wonderful experience getting to know everyone. Everyone has a variety of life experiences to this point, and I think the young people learned a lot from the older people and vice versa. There are so many highlights. Everything from the churches that we saw to last night, the tour of the Vatican, St. Peter's, to the aperitivo evenings with the group, to the wine tasting, to learning Italian and going to the market. Everything has been wonderful. I really cannot say that there was one particular thing that stood out. Everything stood out.
Being here for 6 weeks, you think, wow, like how am I going to get Italy down in 6 weeks? And you just get immersed in it with this program. You bond with these people that you just met. You are both, everyone's thrown into an area that they're unfamiliar with, and you forge this amazing bond just through your experiences together, and it's absolutely beautiful. For anybody, if you have the time and you are willing to dive face first into an experience with a diverse group of different ages, and that to me adds even more experience. You learn so much from all these different people.
Had such a fun time with our professors. They were very engaged with their topics. They were very passionate. And I was introduced to all kinds of new foods. And I'm going to have to say that is one of the highlights of my experience here. I would say 2 thumbs up. I would definitely do the program again.
This is, as I said, an intense 6-week program that immerses you in the society of Italy and specifically Rome. And I think that going into the program and understanding that, knowing that you're going to live as a Roman, you're going to be going to your local market, you're going to be carrying maybe bottles of water home, you're going to be in metros trying to find your way around. And I think this is part of the excitement of the Temple program. And then layered on top of that are the fabulous professors and the fabulous education that you will get over the 6-week period.
All right. Hello, everybody. Apologies for any of the, here we go. Apologies for any of the technical issues we had. I'm still trying to get my presentation back on the screen. Here we go. Okay. But every time I clicked my Zoom controls, it would pause the video. So there we go. So for those of you who just signed in, we've only just begun with a quick video, a kind of trailer for Adult Study Abroad. You can find that video on YouTube. And we have another older video on our website. This is a newer one we're working on. The old one still had some of our participants, wearing masks and things like that. And thankfully, those times here in Italy are behind us. So we have a really large audience today, which is great. We're so happy to see so many people interested in Adult Study Abroad. We're so happy to see so many familiar names in the participants list as well. I see a lot of Adult Study Abroad alumni in the chat who are thinking about coming back, and it's always so wonderful to welcome our alumni back. Just a few housekeeping items. What we're going to be doing today is taking you through the Adult Study Abroad program here in Rome, step by step. We're going to try to answer all the questions you might have. We're going to wait until the end of the webinar to take live questions, just because we do think we're going to really cover a lot of great info during the course of the webinar. However, if you have a quick question that you want to ask during the call, you can go ahead and put it in the chat here, or there may even be a Q&A section available. And if actually the Q&A section is even better, because that way we won't lose your question in the chat. And my two fabulous assistants are with me today. Their names are Benedetta and Chiara. They will do their best to answer questions in that Q&A section and in the chat as we go along. And then I'll be taking questions from the audience at the end as well. And don't forget, we also have some alum who have very graciously volunteered to speak to you guys about their experience and answer questions directly from the perspective of somebody who's done the program before. So we have got a lot of great stuff to share with you guys. It's going to be, and we have only an hour to do it, so we're going to try to get through everything as quickly as we can here. So I always like to start, of course, with introductions, and I will be introducing myself. But in the meantime, some of you already done this. It's always nice to see who's on the call. So if you want to drop a quick hello in the chat, you can just tell us your name, where you're zooming in from, and of course, if you have any connection to Temple or Temple Rome or the Adult Study Abroad program, we always love to hear from our alumni. So why don't you guys go ahead and drop a quick introduction of yourself in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to be briefly introducing myself and my colleagues here on the call. My name is AJ Fitzgerald. I am the Director of Adult Education here at Temple University of Rome. I've been at Temple Rome now since 2018. And since 2021, I have been directing our Adult Study Abroad program, which we first launched back in 2021 following the pandemic. And I am also a teacher of creative writing, and I do still teach a few classes in the fall and spring semesters. I'm joined on the call by my two program assistants, Benedetta Biondi and Chiara De Martino. For those of you who are joining us as alumni of the spring 2026 cohort, I'm sure you'll be very happy to see Benedetta and Chiara on the call. And for those of you who, well, I can't promise that those of you who are coming in 2026 are going to have a chance to work with them, because it's very possible that they'll have bigger and better jobs. It's kind of like an internship program that we run. We try to make sure that all of our assistants move on to, full-time placements after their time with us. But we love to have our assistants come back and see us. And so hopefully one way or another, many of you will get a chance to meet Benedetta and Chiara. They've been doing such a great job this year, helping us out with the Adult Study Abroad program. Now, I know many of you are alumni of Temple University, but some of you may not be familiar with us. You may be zooming in from other places, other parts of the country, other countries even. And so just a quick introduction. Temple University is a large state-affiliated university in the state of Pennsylvania, specifically in Philadelphia. It was established in 1884, and I believe it now currently has an enrollment north of 30,000 total students. So a pretty large university and one of the nation's oldest, most historic, and also most diverse cities. And Temple University Rome has been around since 1966, when it was founded as the Tyler School of Art in Rome. We've since expanded to cover many more programs than just the art school, but the arts are still a very important part of our identity. For many years, we were housed in the Villa Caproni on the banks of the Tiber River. But since September 2024, we've actually moved to a beautiful new campus location. You can see the view from our terrace here in the screenshot. We are now located right at the Spanish Steps. This is the famous Trinità dei Monti Church at the top of the Spanish Steps. You can see the obelisk here. This is actually the Spanish Steps metro station. And then just on the other side of this building here are the steps themselves. So we're very fortunate to have such a great central location. And we know you're going to love it when you come see it in person for the first time. Here's a quick map of Rome so you can get a sense of where we're located. Again, Temple University Rome. This right here, this little squiggle, I don't think I can zoom in, unfortunately, here. But this little squiggle are the actual steps of the Spanish Steps, and we are located just one building away from the steps itself. We are right on top of the Spanish Steps metro station. In fact, my office window overlooks the entrance to the metro. So very well connected by public transit. And you can see the Spanish Steps very central in Rome, not very far from some of these really famous monuments like the Trevi Fountain, the Pantheon, the Piazza del Popolo. On the other side of the river, we have the Castel Sant'Angelo in the Vatican City. And on this map, you can just see it. I think my zoom bar may have been blocking it before, but the Colosseum is located down here in the bottom right. So very, very centrally located in Rome. For those of you who have never been to the city and are wondering how to get around a little bit. Now, I want to, of course, begin with one of the most basic and important questions here today, in that what exactly is adult study abroad? And who is eligible to participate? I get this question a lot by email, people asking me, I didn't go to Temple, can I still participate? Or, I'm not over a certain age, participate, et cetera, et cetera. And what I really want to make clear is that adult study abroad is a unique opportunity for learners of all ages to study in Italy's capital. And it's great for people who studied abroad way back in the day and want to relive that experience, but it's also great for people who did not have a chance to study abroad and regret it and would like to have that experience for the first time. Believe it or not, I never got to study abroad as an undergraduate student, and I found my way to an international experience later on in life. As you heard in the video, our participants in the past have ranged in age from 23 at the youngest to actually our oldest participant to date was 84 years old at the time of her participation. So we have a great range of ages. I would say the average age is typically, I think when I ran the calculations once, it's right around 60 or 61, but we have people really from all different ages, all parts of the country, around the world as well, and certainly all stages and walks of life. One thing here you can see, this is a great picture of our very first adult study abroad cohort. We were in Umbria for a day trip during the orientation, and this was back in the fall of 2021, and the program has really just taken off ever since. Really nostalgic looking back on this photo. Another thing I want to say, people asking, is this program for me? A lot of people, what I found, come to adult study abroad during a time of transition in their life, whether maybe they are newly retired or newly empty nesters, the kids have grown up and moved out of the house, or some of our younger participants are in between jobs or on a sabbatical, or have had a big change in their personal life or something like this. A lot of our participants come because it is such a long time period in one of these moments of transition. And what we've seen is that, as you heard in the video too, our cohorts really tend to gel and bond with one another because of that, because of the experience they're having in Rome, because of their shared interest in international experiences, their shared curiosity and interest in learning, and also because of the fact that many of them are going through some of these very important transitions together. People develop really deep friendships very quickly, and it's been really exciting to see, and hopefully some of our alumni on that call later on can attest to that directly. So from there, we're going to go ahead and get into the actual details of the program in 2026. We are just now getting ready to welcome our fall 2025 cohort of adult study abroad. In just 2 weeks, I believe they're going to be touching down in Rome. But in the meantime, we're also launching the recruitment for adult study abroad 2026. So in 2026, we're going to have 2 groups, again, just like we did in 2025, a 30-day option in the spring, which begins on May 6th and ends on June 5th, which is a Friday. And then a 6-week option in the fall, which begins on September 9th and ends on October 22nd, which is a Thursday. Please note that when we write arrival date and departure date here, those are the dates for your actual travel, or actually book your flights, for example. You want to arrive no later than May 6th in the spring, no later than September 9th in the fall, and you should leave no earlier than June 5th in the spring and no earlier than October 22nd in the fall. Of course, many of our participants like to come in to Rome a few days early to get settled, or maybe they want to do some traveling before the program. And of course, many of our participants like to stay a little bit later to travel through Italy and Europe. You're certainly welcome to do that. Our participants coming from the United States typically enter on a simple tourist visa, which allows you to be in Europe for up to 90 days. The longer program of the fall is something around 45 days. So you have plenty of time within that tourist visa framework to add additional travel within Italy or Europe, either before or after the program. We talked a little bit about this before in terms of what brings our participants to the program at this point in their lives and what brings them together. But I always do think it's important to just reiterate why study abroad is so important, and why we have so many students, both undergraduates and adults, coming to Rome each year to share an experience like this. For me personally, I can say that my experiences abroad have really been extremely formative. Certainly changed my life in very tangible ways. Of course, I never imagined that I would, I first came to Italy in 2016. I never would have imagined that I would have stayed here and built a life here. And yet here I am. I am Zooming from my home in Rome right now, where I live with my wife and 20-month-old son. And so while my life has changed in very tangible ways since my study abroad, I also think there are many things that I took away from my initial experience. In my case, I was teaching abroad rather than studying abroad, but that really have not only changed let's say, the details of my life, but have also really shaped who I've become as a person. I think studying abroad can really improve one's sense of empathy and cross-cultural understanding. I think it's made me a better problem solver, because it's easier for me to now see things from various perspectives. I think learning a second language has been huge for my thinking and my general perspective on life, and I'm very glad to be able to give that gift of multilingualism to my son as he begins talking for the first time. So there are many, many reasons that one should study abroad. I think there's many things that one can gain from a study abroad experience, and maybe for those of you who have had a study abroad experience in the past, maybe again, that's a great opportunity to share in the chat what you took away from that experience, or why you wanted to study abroad in the first place. And of course, these are some scenes from our past adult study abroad groups. Actually, I believe these are all scenes from that initial group of 2021 still. So those are the dates, that's the when, that's the why. And now let's get more into the what of adult study abroad. What will you actually be doing in your 30 days or 6 weeks in Rome? The basics that you should know, again, you can choose between the 30-day option or the 6-week option. Rome is your classroom. We designed the program with this in mind. We don't want people to fly all the way to the other side of the world just to sit in a classroom that looks like it could have been in Philadelphia. There are some classroom elements. We are a university after all, but many of our classes here in Rome, both for our undergraduates and our adult study abroad participants, take place out in the field, at the archaeological sites, at the museums, at the cultural sites, in neighborhoods of Rome, because a huge part of the Temple Rome mission is experiential learning. We want you to see what you're learning about up close. Classes are held Monday through Thursday, leaving 3-day weekends for you to recharge, travel, go on your own adventures. And then we also offer, we'll talk about this later in the call, some optional add-ons to the program during those weekends, trips that we organize ourselves in addition to the base program. And of course, it's the same Temple Rome faculty that teach our undergraduate students that are teaching the Adult Study Abroad courses. This is very important to us. We've designed Adult Study Abroad as a way to bring the study abroad experience to a new demographic of learners. And we don't want to just send you out there with the same tour guides that you could find, from the online tour operators. These are experienced university professors, and as our alumni will attest to, it really is a different sort of experience than just going on a simple tour. In terms of the actual curriculum and what's included in the program, everybody who signs up for Adult Study Abroad is automatically enrolled in all of the pieces that you can see here on my screen. So that includes your primary focus course, of which there are 3 options I'll talk about in a second. Everybody is enrolled in Italian language and culture. And this is a requirement that we also have in place for undergraduate students. We think that the study of language is really crucial to an authentic study abroad experience, and we've carried this over to the Adult Study Abroad program. We have a film seminar, which is, again, open to all participants in the program. I can talk about this in a second. In addition, we have an orientation program that lasts 3 days. That includes some sessions to just get you settled into the program, to do some paperwork, but also some great bonding opportunities with your classmates, some group dinners and lunches, and even an all-day trip to the countryside in Umbria. We go to a lovely town called Spoleto each fall, and we really have a fantastic time. Finally, there are weekly extracurricular events. These are kind of just fun social activities like cooking classes, pizza making, wine tasting, things like this that we do to kind of unwind from class and get the whole group together in the middle of the week, usually on Wednesday. So everything you see here, everything I've just said, is included in the base program when you sign up for Adult Study Abroad. In addition to those base program elements, there are optional program elements, things that you can add to your experience if you want to dive even deeper into certain subject matters, or if you want to travel with us outside the city of Rome. These optional program elements include elective courses. So these are additional courses that are offered on a rotating basis each semester. Friday trips. So these are just day trips out and back to destinations pretty close to Rome. And then finally, we have a series of weekend trips that we organize to different regions of Italy. And don't worry, we'll get into all the details about those various trips and courses in just a second. In terms of those primary classes, we have a class called Roma Antica. We have Roma Moderna and Roma Città di Arte. So this is new. Actually, in 2025, for the first time, we offered all 3 focuses. Previously, actually, when we started the program, we had just 1, and then we moved to 2 in 2023. And now, as of 2025, we have all 3 courses being offered. And actually, they're slightly out of order, but the Roma Antica class, as you can imagine, is all about antiquity. So let's say from the Etruscans, a pre-Roman society, through the early medieval period, the sort of fall of the Roman Empire. We have Roma Città di Arte, really focused on art history, going over a little bit, of course, the classical influences, but it really begins with picking up in that medieval period and then moving on to the Renaissance and Baroque periods. And then finally, Roma Moderna is modern history. So you're going to be learning about the creation of the modern Italian state, Italy's participation in the 2 world wars, the rise of fascism in Italy, things like this. So we have ancient history, art history, and modern history. And everyone can choose one of these 3 focuses for their time in Rome. You can only choose one, unfortunately. But if you want to do another one, you can, of course, come back for a second time, as we have some of our alumni thinking about doing next year. If you want to see the schedule kind of all laid out, here is the sample schedule that we share on our website. You can see that we have on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have those primary focus courses meeting twice per week in the mornings. Again, you're going to be meeting off campus at the archaeological sites, at the museums. On Wednesday mornings, we have a cultural lab for your Italian class. So it's more than just being in the classroom, learning grammar and vocabulary. You're also going to get a chance to go out into the city, practice your Italian, and learn about Italian culture in real life settings. And then you're going to have your typical classroom sessions as well to start and end your week. In addition to your Italian professor, we place Italian tutors. These are local university students doing their internship hours. They're studying for degrees in translation and interpretation into those Italian classes so that you can also practice during class in small group settings. So it's not just your Italian professor in there. You're going to have your professor and a team of tutors so that you can really practice your language skills with native speakers. And then finally, we have that film seminar Tuesday afternoons. You can see we have a big break around lunchtime each day, and that's frankly just to kind of mirror the typical schedule of life in Rome. Many businesses, churches, even some of the sites we go to see close during the lunch hour from 1 to 3 p.m. So we tend to leave that block empty to allow you guys some time to get around the city, to have lunch yourselves, and also just to reflect the reality of daily life here in Rome. The elective courses are typically scheduled for Monday afternoons, and the extracurricular activities, you can see the sample activities we have down here for Wednesday evenings. I mentioned a little bit about each of these classes before. We have the Roma Antica class, again, focused on ancient history. You can see Professor Benedetta Bessi here with her class from the spring of 2026. Here they are. This is Piazza Venezia in the background. So they are at this is the Roman Forum in the back. This is, I guess, near the Mercato di Traiano or the Colonna di Traiano or the Imperial Forums, I think maybe they're called on the other side. Somebody can correct me if I got that wrong. There's the reason that we have the experts teaching these classes and not me. But for each class, you're going to have a syllabus like this one. This is the actual syllabus from spring 2025, laying out where and when you're going to meet each and every single day. And it's all set up very well. So you click on this blue link for your class on Tuesday, and it'll bring you to Google Maps to show you exactly where class is going to be meeting that day. We have the modern history course. Like I said, this is about from the mid-1800s with the unification of the Italian peninsula to the post-war period. And this is with Professor Diego Pagliarulo. Here on the right, here is our group. This was actually a field trip, not the regular scheduled class, but a Roma Moderna themed field trip that we took to the Sicilian American Cemetery in Nettuno. So this is one of several American cemeteries in Europe where the fallen from the world wars were interred following the conflict. And it is a beautiful site to visit. It is very well kept up and a lot of very powerful stories to hear on these grounds. And then finally, we have our newest track, Roma Città d'Arte, again, heavy focus on Renaissance and Baroque art history. This is typically taught by a tag team of two professors, Professor Frank de Bell, who you can see here in the photograph, and Professor Rob Huber, who is not pictured. But again, this is a class where you're going to be visiting the museums, you're going to be visiting the churches, because the churches in Rome are some of the best museums we have. Some really fantastic masterworks are actually available for free, just in, could be that random church around the corner that you never thought twice of, and you go in and you find works by Bernini or Raphael or Caravaggio. This is a really special thing about Rome and why so many people come to Rome each year to study art history. Then we have the Italian language and culture course, which I mentioned before. It's not just about vocabulary and grammar. The culture element here is very important. I think it's very difficult to learn about a culture without learning about the language. And so we try to help you do both in the Italian language and culture course. Here is a group from last spring in one of our new classrooms at the Spanish Steps. You could see having a great time during their Italian class. And then, so there's 2 classroom sessions for the Italian each week, and then the 1 offsite session out in the city. And you can see the sort of standard syllabus here that they use for Italian language and culture. And finally, we have the film seminar. And so the film seminar is something we added because we really wanted adult study abroad to reflect the kind of study abroad experience that our undergraduates have. And so all these experiential learning elements, the language was great. But we realized that something was missing, and that was time for real sit-down seminar discussion with your classmates. Because when you're out on the go at these sites, sometimes you don't always have time for those sorts of discussions. And so we've added a film seminar with one of our most beloved and longest tenured professors. On the left here, Maria Ponce de Leon. And we chose film because we felt that it was just a really great, accessible way to give people something to talk about, but also it's a nice way to kind of reflect upon and process what you're learning in the other classes, because film can really encapsulate so much. And so it's been a great hit since we introduced the class. You can again see the group here. This is our old campus at the Villa Caproni, but you can see the group having a really great time. And then we have those extracurricular activities I mentioned before each Wednesday. Here's some photographs. We have a homemade Italian cooking class. This is actually held in a private home in northern Rome. And we also often like to do a pizza making class. You can see here this group did their class at Italy, actually. We have various elective courses that we run each semester. These courses are offered depending on the interest of each individual group. So after people apply and sign up, we do surveys to figure out what this particular group is most interested in outside of the base program. And we try to offer electives to match those interests. So the offerings rotate each semester. They're not always the same. But in the past, we've offered classes like Architecture of Modern Rome, Artists and Artisans, exploring more contemporary art making and craft making in the city. Multicultural Rome, a study of kind of histories of migration in the city. Art and Food, which is kind of a studio art drawing class, but with a special focus on food. And we also have other studio art courses that we've offered in the past as well, such as printmaking. And you can see this is a scene from the Artists and Artisans course. This is an artisan here in Rome who makes these mobiles, and actually participants get to make their own little pieces during the course of this session. And it's always a great time. Here is a scene from the Multicultural Rome course and Casa Scalabrini, which you can see here in the back. The phrase on the flag here is, we're not just talking about migrants, we're talking about all of us. And this is a group that, it's a nonprofit group that works with some of the migrant and refugee populations in Rome. And our students had a chance to meet with the activists directly and learn about the work they do. We have 3 weekend trips now that we offer. Again, this depends on signups. We need a minimum number of signups in order to run these courses, but these are the trips that we currently have on offer. We have a Bay of Naples trip, which aligns with the Romantica class. So you're going to go and see things like Pompeii, Herculaneum, the Archaeological Museum of Naples, and that's going to be led by Professor Benedetta Bessi, who was pictured earlier. This is a Friday through Sunday trip, so 2 nights. And when you sign up, it includes everything. I think this is one of the really nice things about these trips. Many of you may have been the sort of trip planner in your family in the past and had to deal with all of the details. But for this, you sign up and you let us take care of everything for you. We'll get the hotels, we'll get the transportations, we'll get the tickets, we'll get the guides. And also many of the meals, all the meals are included in these trips with the exception of Saturday evening. We like to let the group go and do their own thing, but the other lunches and dinners and breakfasts are already all included. So we have the Bay of Naples, and here you can see one of our previous groups at Pompeii. This was in the fall of 2023. We have a trip to Palermo, which aligns with the Roma Moderna track. This is a very different kind of view of Italy. It's a little grittier, it's a more contemporary, and it's a look at some of the social movements that have risen in Sicily in response to decades of mafia control. Now we have lots of really successful anti-mafia movements having popped up in Sicily starting in the 1990s. And so we go with a professor of anthropology to learn more about these social movements. And because we have to, it's a little further to Sicily, it's an island, we fly in Thursday evening, it's a little bit longer, and we fly back Sunday evening. So 3 nights in Palermo. And again, all of your meals will be taken care of with the exception of Saturday evening. And here you can see, this is a very powerful scene. This is our fall 2023 group at the Portella della Ginestra monument outside of Palermo. Basically, in the 1940s, there was a massacre of farm laborers on this site. It was on Labor Day, and the workers were gathering to celebrate not just the holiday, but also there were important labor reforms that were being initiated in Sicily at that time, which was almost still kind of a feudalistic type system, prior to World War II. And the farm workers were beginning to organize to ask for better working conditions and more rights. And obviously that was, not everyone was happy with that. And we had one of the sort of prototypes for the kind of really sensational mafia violence that would plague the island for decades to come. So the Portella della Ginestra is a very important sort of turning point in the history of organized crime in Sicily. And there's this monument to commemorate that. And here we are with Professor Greg Smith on the left and activist Caterina Pellingra, who works with Libera, the most important anti-mafia organization in Sicily today. So a very powerful trip outside the city. And our last weekend trip to align with the Roma Città d'Arte course is Tuscany. We just introduced this last spring. And our itinerary includes Siena and Florence. And also, of course, you can't go to Tuscany without tasting some wine. So we go to a wonderful family-run vineyard in Montepulciano as well. And here you can see some of the scenes from that trip. This is me on the left with our spring 2025 crew. I think I actually saw some of the people in this photo in the chat earlier. And then on the right, we are learning about the winemaking process in Montepulciano. And each itinerary has, each trip will have an itinerary like this. This is an older itinerary for our Bay of Naples excursion. That was a little bit different version of the trip, but that's the documentation that you're getting if you sign up. And then, of course, we have our Friday trips. These are out and backs. It's a morning visit to a museum or a cultural site or something similar, a group lunch. And I take pride in choosing restaurants that I think the group will really, really enjoy. And the alumni can attest to that. Maybe, hopefully, my assistants as well. I like to make sure everyone is well fed during the Adult Study Abroad program. And then an afternoon visit, and then back to Rome. So you're back home by dinner time. So these are all held on Fridays when there are no classes in session, and destinations of the past have included Tivoli, Sperlonga, the Sicilian American Cemetery in Nettuno. We'll be going to Ostia Antica this fall. And here you can see our fall 2024 group enjoying beautiful view at the Villa d'Este in Tivoli. It's just some really stunning fountains in the gardens at the Villa d'Este. So in just a second, we're going to be calling on some of our alumni to join the panel and to talk about their experience and even answer some questions from the crowd. But before we do, I want to just go over some kind of really important frequently asked question items, because we get these questions so much, and there's just a few things we want to make sure that everybody knows going into the program, going into your application to the program. First and foremost, I mentioned this before, Adult Study Abroad is not a seniors only program. The only requirement is that you be, actually it says 21 here, I believe the minimum is 23, but the idea is that it's for learners who are already past the traditional college age. So there isn't a hard minimum age, and there's certainly no maximum age. And our participants have ranged in age from 23 to 84 in the past. So it's adult study abroad, but it's not senior only study abroad. Now, we also want to be very clear that the experiential learning focus of Temple Rome also means that a lot of these activities are going to be walking intensive. You're going to need to walk from, if you're in a site like the Roman Forum, there's a lot to walk just within that site. It's a huge archaeological site. Some days they're going to be walking through the city from one church to another. You may need to climb up or down stairs during some program activities. Basically, what it boils down to is the city of Rome is a beautiful historic city, but it is not ADA compliant. You'll see things sometimes walking around the city and be like, how is that even legal? And it makes you really appreciate the success of legislation like the ADA in the United States, because you can see the effect it's had on the built environment. Unfortunately, there is not really an equivalent. I mean, there are, of course, rules about accessibility in Europe, but there's not really something quite as comprehensive as the ADA here in Italy. So you'll even find, like a lot of restaurants, hey, where's the bathroom? Okay, just go down this sort of spiral dungeon staircase and you'll find the bathroom, down in the cellar somewhere. So this is a reality we want people to be prepared for. The program is walking intensive, and the city of Rome is not always friendly to those with mobility issues. Also, we like to make sure that people realize this is a study abroad experience and not just a typical travel experience. Our professors are not tour guides, they are university professors and leading experts in their fields. Staying in Rome for 4 to 6 weeks mean you'll be living like a local, and you'll have to find time to do your usual errands. You're gonna have to do laundry. You're probably gonna get sick of eating in restaurants every day. You're gonna want to cook sometimes. You're gonna have to go shopping. So it's not just like staying in the hotel and like you would on a normal vacation. And finally, not everyone is staying at the same hotel like an organized group trip. So that means you're not necessarily going to be getting on the bus with everyone in the morning and going to class together. It means you're going to have to learn to navigate the city a little bit on your own, taking public transit or taxis or walking. And of course, we will take some time during orientation to help get you familiarized with the public transit system. We even do a little public transit demo during the orientation. We'll actually take you for your first trip on the metro. This is non-credit program. It's for personal enrichment only, and therefore we cannot sponsor student visas for this program. Our participants come simply on a regular tourist visa, meaning if you have an American passport, you don't have to apply for anything special. In 2026 or 2027, Europe is introducing a visa waiver program similar to what Europeans must do to enter the United States. They keep pushing it back, so if you do end up enrolling in the program, we'll make sure to give you the updates on that. But it would be a very simple online registration, and I believe the cost is scheduled to be 6 or 7 euros. So it's not really anything outrageous. The courses in this program are designed for beginners in their respective fields, so you don't need to have a ton of prior experience in art history, for example, to participate. No exams or grades are given during the program. So it's kind of all the fun parts of learning without the stressful parts. Our classes are taught in English. Sometimes I get that question, with the exception, of course, of some of the more advanced Italian classes. The teachers will be using Italian, but in the beginning classes, of course, they'll be using a mix of English and Italian. And while there isn't really a ton of homework, there's going to be some homework in the Italian language and culture class, just because you need to find some time to practice. There are always optional readings provided for each class for those who want to dive a little bit deeper into the subject matters. Adult Study Abroad is not a language immersion program. So there are programs that you have to speak Italian all the time. It's a great way to learn the language really quickly. The language is a big part of what we do, but we're not an immersion program. So if that's what you're looking for, it's important to keep this in mind. And as I said earlier, most of the activities are in English. Of course, a lot of people want to know the hard numbers. How much does the experience cost? We've published the 2026 pricing on our website, but you can see it here as well. Pricing starts at $32.95 for the 4-week program and $42.95 for the 6-week program. And then we have a series of additional fees for those optional program elements I discussed earlier. And then we do offer a series of discounts to Temple and Temple Rome alumni, faculty, staff. You save 15% off that base program fee. Parents of Temple University and Temple Rome alumni, we like to recognize the people who are actually, in many cases, paying the bills for our Temple Rome University alumni, and we offer a 10% discount to parents, even if you never attended Temple University yourself. We have a buddy discount if you're traveling with a spouse or with a friend or with a group of friends. You can all be eligible for 10% discount off your program fee. We offer some flat rate discounts as well to some of our Temple University adult learners in Philadelphia. This should be 2024-25. Sorry, I should update that. And we now have a brand new partnership with the National Italian American Foundation. And so we offer some discounts to members of that foundation as well. Now, that's a lot of information to digest. I know. I see there are some questions coming in, and Chiara and Benedetta will be there in the Q&A section doing their best to answer what they can. But in the meantime, I'm going to pull up some of our most recent participants that were here just in our last cohort, and so they can talk a little bit about their experience in Rome in the spring of 25, sorry. So I have Cindy.
Hello.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. So good to see your faces again.
It's great to see you, Cindy. So Cindy, while I'm looking through the participants to find some of your classmates, maybe you could just start by briefly talking about your experience in Adult Study Abroad.
Sure. It was a life-changing experience for me, for sure. I did look back on my phone, AJ, when you were talking about the walking intensive part. I have a little step counter on my phone, and my average was 14 to 16,000 steps a day. So it is walking intensive. And there were sometimes I did travel with my friend Joanne and my neighbor across the street. There were sometimes when we got back to our apartment and we were lights out before the sun went down. So there are some days that are really long and intense, but I can't say enough about how well the program was coordinated. Every morning we got a text and a note from Kara and Benny about where we had to be and what we had to bring and, our locations. And we learned the metro, the public transportation system, I thought was fabulous. Some people had problems with the buses. Joanne and I were far enough out in Prati that we were sort of at the beginning of a bus line, so we could walk a couple of blocks and catch the bus and get anywhere very quickly. We didn't have any problems with the buses, but the metro's great. I would encourage everybody to really take advantage of the social stuff afterwards. We have a whole group of us here still in Philly and actually down in Delaware that have met several times since we've gotten home and gone to some museums and out to dinner and that kind of thing. So the relationships, the friendships, the deep connection that we've made. Hi, Debbie and Linda. Oh my gosh, I miss you guys so much. Gonna get all emotional. It was really, really, really a great experience. AJ, I can't thank you enough for putting it together so well. And I studied the Città d'Arte. I took the Città d'Arte track, and we saw some amazing pieces of work for sure in the churches. They were just breathtaking. So you don't have to sign up for the museum tours and go through 100 other people. You can just go with your small group to the churches and see some breathtakingly beautiful, beautiful works of art. So highly recommended. I can't wait to come back. Probably not 2026, but spring of 2027. I'm in.
Thanks so much, Cindy.
Yeah, thank you again.
Linda or Deborah, or I thought Lisa was here as well. Do you guys want to just briefly talk about your experience?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I cannot say enough how much I enjoyed this program and how it exceeded my expectations. I can't, and people ask me all the time, what was your favorite thing? I can't answer that. And the whole program was just tremendous. That the walking is very true, like Cindy said, but you don't have to walk. Like the public transportation is awesome. Like I lived in Prati too for the 4 weeks, and the metro station was right a block away from my apartment, as are the buses. So if you choose not to walk, at least to where you're trying to meet up with your group, you don't have to. But it's a wonderful way to see Rome and really see, behind the scenes. The area I lived in, Prati, I loved it. I would definitely recommend anybody that was looking for a place to stay there. I really don't have a bad thing to say. Everything was just phenomenal. And the restaurants that AJ chose, we just marveled the entire time at what were given back for how much, of an investment we made. Well worth it. I will definitely do it again. I'm not sure when, maybe 2026, maybe 2027, but I definitely would do it again. And, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Linda and then Lisa.
Okay, I'll talk about the Italian classes because some folks might be interested to know that they do have a way to accommodate folks who are at a more advanced level of Italian. I work as an Italian interpreter, so I placed above the levels that they were offering routinely to the participants, but I was able to arrange an independent study with one-on-one with the head of the Italian department, turned out to be my professor, and that was such a special time when I got to just structure each lesson the way I needed for an exam that I'm preparing for. And Chiara and Benedetta were also my teachers for that class. So I want to speak highly about the Italian offerings. I'll chime in on the steps. For me, I think the hardest part was standing still and listening for longer periods of time. So I don't know, if people have trouble standing, then you might want to bring along one of those things that becomes a seat, because there are often times that you need to stand to admire all the beautiful things around Rome.
Thanks, Linda. And Lisa, not last but not least.
I learned quite a bit about public transportation and how to navigate a city on my own, which was a great experience, a rich experience. I thought the program was so well organized logistically, and the content so rich, a great balance of independent and group learning, lots of experiential learning, which was so valuable. I thought the professors were way above expectation. They went out of their way to help and to add value. I was in a studio art course, never put a pen or a pencil to a piece of art paper, and got so much out of the classes, way more than I thought I would. The only other thing I'll say is I wore out a brand new pair of Converse sneakers. I literally had to throw them in the trash on the way to the airport. I had holes in the insoles from my toes.
So, listen,
The other thing I wanted to say,
yeah,
AJ,
Cindy.
the other thing I wanted to say is there were so many good readings that, the assignments that I couldn't get to while I was there, but I love the fact that we still had all that available to us when we got home, because some of the film seminar stuff that I just was too tired at the end of the day to do. And even the book that we got for the Italian language class, it was great to be able to take that home with me and do some of the readings once I got home. And it sort of helped connect a little bit of the dots, because some of the days there was so much information that it was nice to settle back home and still be able to go back and say, oh yeah, it made a little more sense. I sort of connected the dots a little better.
Great.
Because
And
the
that little bit
professors
of
are fabulous.
I'm just keeping my eye on the clock here.
Sure.
Officially, we're ending at 7. I will stay on the line to answer as many questions as you guys will have. Of course, if anyone needs to run, feel free to run. While we have our alumni here, I'd like to know if there are any questions directly for our program alumni. And Benedetta and Chiara, you guys have been monitoring the chats. Have you seen any questions come through directed for the alumni on the panel right now?
They were asking,
I just answered a question about the neighborhood that Cindy and Deborah stayed in, and it was the Patti neighborhood.
So I'm seeing some messages about housing too, and you guys can talk about the housing you found, but I want to iterate that we provide a lot of support in terms of finding housing during the pre-departure process. So we have a long pre-departure process that includes multiple Zoom calls between the time your application is accepted and the time that you have to actually leave to arrive in Rome. So we have a brief housing guide on our website that Chiara and Benny, maybe you can put the link in the chat. It shows you some of the neighborhoods that we recommend. It shows you also some of the platforms our participants in the past have used to find housing. But again, that's something that it takes a little while. So we typically do actually a dedicated Zoom for housing after people have been accepted to the program. But if people, maybe you can talk briefly about your process finding housing. Were you happy with your housing, with your apartment, things like that?
Sure.
I'll say I was very happy with my apartment. I searched on Airbnb. Was lucky enough to read some reviews where it seemed like people that had done the program before had stayed in the apartment where I was searched, ultimately did rent that apartment. But I sent it to AJ, and he gave his take on the area. And after I read those reviews, I was pretty confident, and it ended up being a great spot. And I would definitely recommend it to anyone. It was just really as advertised.
And that's
Yeah,
another thing. For any,
Prati's a good spot, I think. We stayed in Prati too. I wasn't quite as crazy about our apartment, but we booked late, so the choices were less. It also was the Jubilee, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. We were a little late in our booking, so our choices were small. I wouldn't recommend the apartment that we stayed in, but definitely Prati itself. It's close to metros and buses and everything. The town itself is great. I wouldn't recommend the apartment that we stayed in, but I would stay in Prati again in a second.
I was just going to say, while our applicants and enrolled participants are in, the housing search process, you can also always welcome to reach out to me. Hey, I found this apartment. Do you think it looks good? I'm always happy to give guidance. Unfortunately, we don't have our own housing to provide. We do work with a homestay coordinator, an external coordinator who has arranged homestays for some of our participants in the past, which is often a really great value for those who don't mind, sharing a space or living in a family's home. But again, we'll follow up with this. If you really want to get a head start on housing, you can always send me an email to get a head start, or acceptances start going out in September, because we've already opened applications for 2026. We're going to start processing those in September, and soon after those initial acceptances, I'll start providing more details about housing. I'm seeing a question from Roxanne. Let's see if I can let you, I can figure out how to turn on your microphone here. Here we go. Roxanne, did you want to ask a question?
Well, no, you partially answered it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. You partially answered it by saying you start the process of accepting applications in September. So do we get like an email that would say
get an
whether
email, just like a high school kid applying to college? You get an email that'll say congratulations, and that'll be that. I do want to say is that the application is much less rigorous than for, I don't know if you've already applied, or for many of you have already applied, or if you're thinking about applying. The application process is not, we're not asking for transcripts, we're not asking for test scores or anything like that. It's really a way to just kind of collect some information from our interested participants. Someone asked about numbers. I don't know yet. I'm expecting a lot of applications for 2026. I'm expecting one of our biggest groups yet, based on early indicators. But in terms of how many we can accept, consider that we try to cap each course at 18 participants. 18 is the magic number. So we have 3 courses now: Roma Antica, Città d'Arte, and Moderna. In theory, we could have 18 in each course, but for example, last spring we had 36 total. We had a lot of people in Antica. We had, sort of mid-sized group in Città d'Arte, and then we had a small group in Roma Moderna. So I'm expecting a total group somewhere around there. I see Christine has a question. See if we can get Christine on the call.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Quick question. What is the difference in the curriculum between the 4 and the 6-week programs?
They're very similar. So they're going to be all the same options in terms of the courses, etc. It's just obviously the 4-week program is going to be condensed. So in order to take the syllabus from the 6-week version of the 4 weeks, we naturally have to cut out some of the lessons and some of the visits. We're probably not going to be able to offer all 3 of those weekend trips in the spring. We'll offer, the 2 that get the most interest, but so thematically they're the same. It's just a matter of there's a little extra content in the fall session.
Thank you.
AJ, can I say something real quick about the housing stuff?
Yeah.
I think that, you know, I was really worried about that too, not knowing, but I have to say for everybody who's interested, you know, we also sent our choices, our first selections of properties to you too, and you were very helpful. So you know, that was something that I was really worried about. How do you find a place to live? Where are you going to stay? You know, for all of you who are interested, this program is run so well that you really don't have to worry. I mean, it seems daunting maybe if you've never done anything like that before, which I hadn't, but the a level of detail that AJ and Kiara and Benny provided for all of us made it all sort of fearless. And I can say that in hindsight, you know, I remember being worried about that too, but don't worry because it'll all work out.
Yep. So thank you so much. So I'm just looking through some of these Q&As. Somebody asked for the link to the application. Benny, could you put that in the chat as well so everybody has that? I'm also seeing some questions about timelines and budget and things like that. So let me pull up my slides again because I'm going to be able to answer some of those questions with my slides. Hold on.
I'm sorry, AJ. I can only seem to send messages to the organizer and the people who are allowed to speak in this call, so not everyone can see the link. I answered in the Q&A, so they have the link there, but I can't send it to everyone in the chat.
There may be a drop down, Benny. If you click where it says hosts and panelists, you may be able to change that.
Yes, no, I can only send it to you and to the people who spoke, but not to everyone.
Send it to me and then that way I can copy it really quickly. Okay, sorry. Can you guys see my screen? All right. So the last slides I have here were about the timeline. I want to say a lot of the timeline is pretty flexible because we do applications on a rolling basis. But we offer these dates as a sort of guideline. Our priority deadlines for applying are January 15th and March 15th for the spring and fall, respectively. These are priority application deadlines. However, many applications have already come in. We process those applications on a rolling basis starting in September, and we'll provide housing assistance as those applications come in, starting also in September as well. So it's a rolling process. The earlier you apply, the better chances you will have of getting into your first choice program and your first choice class. Enrollment will officially open, so you apply, and then once your application is processed and accepted, you'll have a chance to enroll. In order to enroll and save your spot in the program, you're going to have to put down a deposit of either $295 or $395 for the spring and fall program, so a little less than 10% of the program fee. And enrollment will open sometime in fall 2025, likely, well, we'll see. In the past, it was after our fall group has actually left. Our fall group will be in town until the end of October, and I'll be pretty busy with them these next few weeks, but we've been trying to move this timeline up each year. So hopefully we can even open it up in September if possible. And then the fall enrollment will open shortly afterwards. And there will be an email sent out to everybody letting them know that you can enroll at this website by paying your deposit to hold your spot. Once enrollment is open and acceptances have gone out, we'll start those pre-departure meetings that I mentioned. These are going to be Zoom sessions exclusively for accepted and enrolled applicants. It says here starting in November, but likely this year we'll start a little bit earlier to give people a head start in their housing searches. And then the last chance to enroll is April 1st and July 1st for the two programs. However, I expect that we may actually fill up or get close to full for our programs a lot earlier than that this year. So I really do recommend getting in your application and deposit as soon as possible. The balance of the program comes due about 1 month prior to departure. And the only additional fee that's going to be due between your deposit and the program balance is the weekend trip fee. If you want to come to Palermo or Tuscany or something, we're going to ask for that 3 to 4 months prior to departure, because we need to be able to go out and book flights and buses and hotel rooms and things like that. So in terms of timeline, that's what we've got going on. I saw a question before about budget and how to do the complete budget for the program. I don't like to throw out numbers because I found that there are some people who have spent a lot of money having really a fairly luxurious travel experience for adult study abroad. And there are other people that have managed to participate in the program on a more affordable basis. So it's hard for me to give a really precise range. What I will say is that in addition to the costs that I put online before for the program, the big costs are of course going to be your flight. So make sure you're getting on Google Flights and things like that to compare options early if possible. Although sometimes, you know, the best flight deals are not, you know, 10 months in advance. Sometimes actually later the flights will come down. So monitor the flights and see how they fluctuate over time. Housing, which has also fluctuated a lot in the last few years. I was looking at some housing for people for this fall, and on the very low end, we were finding apartments starting at 2,000 euros a month, which actually a little while ago, because of the Jubilee, it was very rare to find prices in that range. So they've come down a little bit after the explosion for the Jubilee. But most of the apartments are probably starting around 3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment, and then they would go up from there. But there were some budget options that were cheaper. And the homestay option is usually the best value option. That starts at 400 euros per week. And that includes some home-cooked meals as well. But it's not for your entire apartment. That's for a room in a local home. But a lot of our alumni have great experiences with the homestay. So flights and housing are big expenses. And then a lot of times food, people ask about food. But what I like to say, and our alumni can talk about this, I think food in Italy is much cheaper than in the United States these days, both at the grocery store and often at restaurants. So if your eating habits stay the same, you may end up even saving money on food while you're in Italy. Of course, maybe you're going to be eating out a lot more than you usually do, and you could spend more. But in general, keep that in mind. Food, you're going to have to eat, whether you're in Italy or not, you're going to have to eat those sweets. And food in Italy is cheaper than where most of our participants come from.
Plus, we found from Philly that the flight was cheaper out of Newark, and the train from 30th Street Station in Philly to the Newark airport was under $20. So, you know, we took the train, and we even, all three of us that flew out of Newark together made 2 different train reservations on the way back, because we weren't sure how long it would take us to get through customs. So whichever one we made, you know, we canceled the other one. And the trains, for all 3 of us, we all came back at a different time. The trains were $20. So, you know, it was nonstop out of Newark and not out of Philadelphia.
And what I'll say, that New York, including Newark and JFK, but the New York-Rome route is one of the most common routes. There's so many flights per day coming out of both airports. So if you can take the train to Newark, it's a great option, because there's a lot of flights, and because of that, they're often a lot cheaper. That's the flight I fly to go home for Christmas. And
it's super easy to get to the Newark. I mean, to get to from the train in Newark to the airport, and it drops off right there.
Better connected actually than JFK, so it's it's a great option. Are there any other questions, Benny or Kelly, that I may have missed?
I have one quick one. I'm not Benny or Kiara.
Lisa.
For alum, should we continue to try and use the link to apply, or are we good if we send you an email?
No, just send me an email. Yeah. We've had some technical issues with our alum coming back in 2026. We have a lot of alum on the call. I want to make sure I say hello to everyone. I've pulled up everyone I saw from spring 2025, but I've seen a lot of alum on the call. from previous cohorts as well. So I want to say hello to all of you guys too. And yes, there have been some issues with the applications for those of you who applied in the past, but just send me an email and we'll get this worked out. I'm seeing a question about the criteria we use to accept students. I'll be honest, the application process is really a bit of a formality. And so a lot of it is first come, first served basis. We're also try when possible to balance the Italian sections because we have a beginner, intermediate, advanced section when we have large groups. So if possible, we want to make sure those sections are balanced so we don't accept 50 beginners and nobody in the intermediate section. And then we also like to make sure that we are recognizing our Temple University alumni and things like that. But these are some of the things that we look at when putting the cohorts together. It hasn't been an issue though. If you apply early, you have a really good chance of getting into your first choice program. I have a question about the female to male ratio in the sessions. This is funny because you can basically look at our Zoom panel right now and it'll give you an idea of what the ratio is usually like. And this is not just true of adult study abroad. This is true of study abroad in Italy, at Temple Rome in general. Many more women seem to be interested in studying abroad in Italy than men. I don't have all the answers for you as why that is, but it is something we have seen year after year in our undergraduate program and our adult study abroad program. I would say conservatively 80-20 is a pretty typical breakdown of what we've seen at both levels in the past. And obviously it varies group to group, but historically that's what we've seen. So it is 7:15. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead. Well, let's see if I can, I see Melissa has her hand up. Let's see if I can turn your microphone on. Again, if everyone has to run, please feel free. Melissa, can you hear us?
Yes, I was just wondering if you apply for one cohort and then find that you need to switch to the other for some reason, is that ever a possibility?
Yeah, it's happened quite a few times in the past. If there's room, we're happy to accommodate that. We also have a lot of people who apply, let's say for 2026, and then something comes up and they say, I can't come this year anymore, and they'll end up deferring their enrollment to 2027. That happens a lot too. So as long as there's room in the cohort you'd like to move into, we're happy to accommodate those requests.
Okay, thank you.
The Italian placement exam is given is part of the pre-departure process. So our incoming fall 2025 participants have already taken their Italian placement exam and will be placed into their sections before they get here, and then we reevaluate those placements once people arrive in Rome. Anthony. Can you hear us? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and...
sorry, AJ, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm interested in bringing a friend with me to study abroad, but as a guest only. Would he be able to then attend the weekend outings that you have planned?
That's a great question. We do have a guest policy, so whether some people will have, their spouse come visit for a few days, or maybe they'll be traveling with a friend, as you've asked. It is possible to purchase a spot in those program optional trips for Fridays and weekends for guests, if space allows. And those options will be we'll lay out those options during the pre-departure process. There's also a guest policy that basically each participant has, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 guest passes, and you can bring your guest along to class with those guest passes. they'll have to pay for their any individual expenses, like if we have to need tickets for a given day, but we'll take care of everything else. So the shared expenses, they don't have to worry about, but they can come and tag along on class, 3 or 4 times, and even to those Wednesday events like the wine tasting, everything. Linda, it was great seeing you. Thanks so much for stopping by. Ciao. So the short answer, Anthony, is yes.
Okay, AJ, I have one more question for you.
Yep.
How do I where's the application? Do I have to ask you for it, or can I go online and look it up?
It's on our website, and I think here. Someone had sent it to me before, and I lost it. Let me see if I'll put that in the chat. But it is on our website, on the front page of the Adult Study Abroad website. You'll see a link to complete the application.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And let's see if I can find that link, and I'll put it in the chat. All right. Any other questions? Oh. Okay. All right. Applications are now open. We opened them, I think, just a week or 2 ago, and we'll start processing those applications that have come in September, maybe as early as next week. Right now, we're just making sure to get ready for incoming fall group. So a recording will be sent out to everybody. For the slides, you'll have to send me an email, aj.fitzgerald@temple.edu. I'll put that actually up on the screen here. You can see our emails here, and send me an email and I can send a copy of the slides when I'm back in the office. So I am going to go ahead and stop recording.